Assalamu alaikum students. I hope you all are safe and sound. So it is the next part of act number 2 from Hedda Gabler. Previous was the first part of the same act. So let's start our today's lecture. Open your books. We studied that Lauberg came to Tasman's house to meet him. And here are the next lines. Lauberg, looking at her, with you, Mrs. Tasman, Hedda, and with his Mrs. Elvsted. Lauberg, lightly. I saw her for a moment this morning. Hedda, did you? Well, she is coming this evening, so see you are almost bound to remain Mr. Lauberg, or she will have no one to see her home. Lauberg, that's true. Many thanks, Mrs. Tasman. In that case, I will remain. Hedda, then I have one or two orders to give the servant. She goes to the hall door and rings. Berta enters. Hedda talks to her in a whisper and points towards the inner room. Berta nods and goes out again. Tasman, at the same time, to Lauberg. Tell me aloud, is it this new subject, the future, that you are going to lecture about? Lauberg, yes. Tasman, they told me that at the booksellers that you are going to deliver a course of lectures this autumn. Lauberg, that is my intention. I hope you won't take it ill, Tasman. Tasman, oh no, not in the least, but Lauberg, I can quite understand that it must be very disagreeable to you. Tasman cast down. Oh, I can't expect you, out of the consideration for me too, Lauberg, but I shall wait till you have received your appointment. Tasman, will you wait? Yes, but, are you not going to compete with me, huh? Lauberg, no, it's only the moral victory I care for. Tasman, why bless me, then Aunt Julie was right after all? Oh yes, I knew it. Hedda, just fancy. Allard Lauberg is not going to stand in our way. So in these lines, Tasman rather transparently begins probing Lauberg for his intention regarding the professorship. Unlike the Tasman, however, Lauberg has no interest in pursuing an academic post for the sake of prestige. He only wants to produce world-shattering work. Next lines are Hedda, curtly, our way, pray leave me out of the question. She goes up towards the inner room where Berta is placing a tray with decanters and glasses on the table. Hedda nods approval and comes toward again. Berta goes. Tasman at the same time. And you, Judge Barak, what do you say on this, huh? Barak, well, I say that a moral victory, maybe all very fine. Tasman, you certainly, but all the same. Hedda, looking at Tasman with a cold smile. You stand there looking as if you were thunderstruck. Tasman, yes, so I am. I almost think. Barak, do you see, Mrs. Tasman, a thunderstorm has just passed over? Hedda, pointing towards the room, will you not take a glass of cold punch, gentlemen? Judge Barak, looking at his watch. A stirrup cup, yes, it would not come amiss. Tasman, A capital idea, Hedda. Just the thing now that the weight has been taken off my mind. Hedda, will you not join them, Mr. Lauper? Lauper, with a gesture of refusal. No, thank you. Nothing for me. Judge Barra, why bless me? Cold punch is surely not poison. Lauper, perhaps not for everyone. Hedda, I will keep Mr. Lauper company in the meantime. Tasman, yes, yes, Hedda, dear do. He and Barack go into the inner room, seat themselves, drink punch, smoke cigarettes, and carry on a lively conversation during what follows. Lauberg remains beside the stove. Hedda goes to the writing table. Here in these lines, Hedda's call for punch seems to be designed as a test for Lauberg. She wants to see whether he trusts himself to drink, which in turn will tell her what is weakness of him. Next lines are Hedda, raising her voice a little. Do you care to look at some photographs, Mr. Lauber? You know, Tasman and I made a tour in the Tyrol on our way home. She takes up an album and places it on the table beside the sofa, in the further corner of which she seats herself. Alert Lovebug approaches, stops, and looks at her, takes a chair, and seats himself to her left. Hedda opening the album. Do you see this range of mountains, Mr. Lovebug? It's the Ortler Group. Tasman has written the name underneath. Here it is. The Ortler Group near Meran. Lovebug, who has never taken his eyes off her, says softly and slowly, Hedda Gabler. Hedda, glancing hastily at him, oh, whoosh. Lauber repeats softly, Hedda Gabler. Hedda, looking at the album, that was my name in the old days, when we two knew each other. Lauber, and I must teach myself never to say Hedda Gabler again, never, as long as I live. As long as I live, Hedda, still turning over the pages, yes, you must, and I think you ought to practice in time, the sooner the better, I should say. Lauber, in a tone of indignation, Hedda Gabler married? And married to George Testman? Hedda, yes, so the word goes. Lauber, oh, Hedda, Hedda, how could you throw yourself away? Hedda looks sharply at him. What? I can't allow this. Lauber, what do you mean? Testman comes into the room and goes towards the sofa. Hedda hears him coming and says in an indifferent tone, and this is a view from the Wild Empezzo, Mr. Lauber. Just look at these peaks. So in these lines, Hedda, we see, always intend to avoid a scandal and pretends to look at a photo album with Lauber when she is really preparing for an intimate conversation. It becomes clear at once that Lauber has very strong feelings for Hedda, just as Tesman referred to Mrs. Elstead. Lauber referred to Hedda familiarly. We come to know that they were familiar with each other in the past also. What's the name of these curious peaks, dear? Tasman, let me see. Oh, those are the Dolomites. Hedda, yes, that's it. Those are the Dolomites, Mr. Lauber. Tasman, Hedda, dear, I only wanted to ask whether I should not bring you a little punch for, after all, for yourself at any rate, Hedda? Yes, do please, and perhaps a few biscuits. Testman, no cigarettes? Hedda, no. Testman, very well. He goes into the inner room and out of the right. Barak sits in the inner room and keeps an eye from time to time on Hedda and Lauberg. Lauberg softly as before. Answer me, Hedda. How could you go and do this? Hedda, apparently absorbed in the album. If you continue to say do to me, I won't talk to you. Lauberg, may I not say do? Even when we are alone? Hedda, no, you may think it, but you must not say it. Lauber, I understand. It is an offense against George Testman, whom you love. Hedda glances at him and smiles. Love? What an idea. Lauber, you do not love him then? Hedda, but I won't hear of any sort of unfaithfulness. Remember that. Lauber, Hedda, answer me one thing. Hedda, whoosh. So, students, in these lines, we come to know that Jed Barak looks on from the other room in jealousy. He senses that Hedda and Lauberg are more to each other than they let on, and he wants to be the only other man in Hedda's life. It may also be the case that he is trying to get some dirt on Hedda so that he will have something to hold over her head and give him power over her. Next lines are Tasman enters with a small tray from the inner room. Tasman, here you are. Isn't this tempting? He puts the tray on the table. Hedda, why do you bring it yourself? Tasman, filling the glasses. Because I think it's such fun to wait upon you, Hedda. Hedda, but you have poured out two glasses. Mr. Lauberg said he won't have any. Tasman, no, but Mrs. Elfsted will soon be here, won't she? Hedda, yes. By the by, Mrs. Elfsted. Tasman, had you forgotten her? Hedda, we were so absorbed in these photographs. Shows him a picture. Do you remember this little village? Tasman, oh, it's that one just below the Brenner Pass. It was there we passed the night, Hedda, and met that lively party of tourists. Tasman, yes, that was the place. Fancy if we could only have had you with us, Allard, He returns to the inner room and sits beside Barak. Lauber, answer me one thing, Hedda. Hedda, well, Lauber, was there no love in your relationship for me either? Not a spark, not a tinge of love in it? Hedda, I wonder if there was. To me, it seems as though we were two good comrades, two thoroughly intimate friends. Smilingly, you especially were frankness itself. Lauber, it was you that made me so. So, students, in these lines, Tasman seems to regard Lauberg not only as a professional but also as something of a sexual rival. Hence, he repeatedly comes over to keep an eye on him and Hedda. Ironically, Tasman only emasculates himself in this by doing the maid's work for his wife. Tasman's allusion to his sexual relations with Hedda seems designed to rather crudely mark his territory, so to speak. Once again, Hedda is repulsed by any mention of sex and associated with herself. Next lines are Hedda. As I look back upon it all, I think there was really something beautiful, something fascinating, something daring in that secret intimacy, that comradeship which no living creature so much as dreamed of. Noble, yes, yes, Hedda. Was there not? When I used to come to your father's in the afternoon, and the general sat over at the window reading his papers with his back towards us, Hedda, and we two on the corner sofa, Lauber, always with the same illustrated paper before us, Hedda, for want of an album, yes? Lauber, yes, Hedda, and when I made my confessions to you, told you about myself, things that at that time no one else knew. There I would sit and tell you of my escapades, my days and my nights of devilment. Oh, Hedda, what was the power in you that forced me to confess these things? Hedda, do you think it was my power in me? Any power in me? Robert, how else can I explain it? And all those roundabout questions you used to put to me, Hedda, which you understood so particularly well, Robert, how could you sit and question me like that? Question me quite frankly, Hedda, in roundabout terms, please observe. Robert, yes, but frankly, nevertheless, cross question me about all that sort of thing, Hedda, and you answer, how could you answer, Mr. Lauber? Lauber, yes, that is just what I cannot understand in looking back upon it. But tell me now, Hedda, was there not love at the bottom of our relationship, our friendship? On our side, did you not feel as though you might point my stains away if I made you my confessor? Was it not so, Hedda? No, not quite. Robert, what was your motive then, Hedda? Do you think it quite incomprehensible that a young girl, when it can be done without any one knowing, Robert, well, Hedda, should be glad to have a peep now and then into a world which, Robert, which, Hedda, which she is forbidden to know anything about. Lauber, so that was it, Hedda, partially, I almost think. Lauber, comradeship is the thirst for life. But why should not that, at any rate, have continued? Hedda, the fault was yours. Lauber, it was you that broke with me. Hedda, yes, when our friendship threatened to develop into something more serious, shame upon you. A lot, Lauber. How could you think of wronging your frank companion? Your frank comrade? Lauber clenches his hands. Oh, why did you not carry out your threat? Why did you not shoot me down, Hedda? Because I have such a dread of scandal. Lauber, yes, Hedda, you are a coward at heart. Hedda, a terrible coward? Changing her tone. But it was a lucky thing for you, and now you have found ample consolation at the Elvested. Lauber, I know that Thea has confided to you, Ada, and perhaps you have confided to her something about us. Robert, not a word. She is too stupid to understand anything of that sort. Ada, stupid? Robert, she is stupid about matters of that sort. Ada, and I am cowardly. Bends over towards him without looking him in the face and says more softly, but now I will confide something to you. Robert eagerly, well, Ada, the fact that I dared not shoot you down. Robert, yes, Ada, that was not my errant cowardice that evening. Lauberg looks at her a moment, understands, and whispers passionately, oh, Hedda Gabler, now I begin to see a hidden reason beneath our comradeship. You and I, after all, then it was your craving for life. Hedda, softly with a sharp glance, take care, believe nothing of the sort. So, all this conversation between Robert and Hedda, we come to know that Hedda refuses to say whether or not she loved Robert, perhaps because doing so would render her vulnerable, or because she is ashamed of what she perceives as a past weakness. It may also be the case, however, that Hedda did not love Lovberg at all, and that she only loved the view he gave her of the world enjoyed only by men in this patriarchal society. Hedda's desire to find out about this world suggests that her huge, violent spirit longs for more scope to act. And Lauberg's conclusion that Hedda lusts for life is a bit ironic considering Hedda's preoccupation with the beautiful death. When she cannot courageously commit to love Lauberg, Hedda threatens to destroy him instead to avoid being forever reminded of her cowardice. In this important scene, Hedda comes as close as she ever will to expressing love for another person, but she immediately cuts short anything that might result from this moment of vulnerability. Next lines. Twilight has begun to fall. The hall door is opened from without by Berta. Hedda closes the album with a bang and calls smilingly, ah, at last, my darling Thea, come along. Mrs. Elstead enters from the hall. She is in evening dress. The door is closed behind her. Hedda, on the sofa, stretches out her arms towards her. My sweet Thea, you can't think how I have been longing for you. Mrs. Elstead, in passing, exchanges slight salutations with the gentleman in the inner room, then goes up to the table and gives Hedda her hand. He and Mrs. Elstead greet each other with a silent nod. Mrs. Elstead, out I to go in and talk to your husband for a moment? Hedda, oh, not at all. Leave those two alone. They will soon be going. Mrs. Elstead, are they going out? Hedda, yes, to a supper party. Mrs. Elstead, quickly to Lauber, not you? Lauber, no. Hedda, Mr. Lauber remains with us. Mrs. Elstead takes a chair and is about to seat herself at his side. Oh, how nice it is here. Hedda, no, thank you, my little Thea. Not there. You will be good enough to come over here to me. I will sit between you. Mrs. Elstead. Yes, just as you please. She goes round the table and seats herself on the sofa on Hedda's right. Robert reseats himself on his chair. Robert, after a short pause to Hedda, is not she lovely to look at? Hedda, lightly stroking her hair. Only to look at. Robert, yes, for me too. She and I were, we are two real comrades. We have absolute faith in each other, so we can sit and talk with perfect frankness. Hedda, not roundabout, Mr. Robert. Robert, well, Mrs. Elstead, softly clinging close to Hedda. Oh, how happy I am, Hedda, for only think he says I have inspired him too. Hedda looks at her with a smile. Ah, does he say that, dear? Robert, and then she is so brave, Mrs. Testman. Miss, Mrs. Elstead, good heavens. Am I brave? Robert, exceedingly, where your comrade is concerned. Hedda, exceedingly, where your comrade is concerned. Hedda, ah yes, courage. If one only had that. Robert, what then? What do you mean? Hedda, then life would perhaps be livable. After all, with a sudden change of tone, but now, my dearest Thea, you really must have a glass of cold punch. Mrs. Elstead, no thanks, I never take anything of that kind. So, in these lines, students, Hedda's insistence on sitting between Thea and Lauberg is Ibsen's most explicit stage picture for the love triangle motif featured throughout the play. Just as Hedda physically sits between the couple, so too does she try to break Thea's emotional influence on Lauberg and exert her own influence on him. Lauberg resists his Lauberg resists this by trying to make Hedda jealous. Next lines are Hedda. Well then, you, Mr. Lauberg. Lauberg, nor I, thank you. Mrs. Elstead. No, he doesn't either. Hedda looks fixedly at him. But if I say you shall, Lauberg, it would be of no use. Hedda laughing. Then I, poor creature, have no sort of power over you. Lauberg, not in that respect. Hedda, but seriously, I think you ought to, for your own sake. Mrs. Elstead, why Hedda? Lauberg, how so? Hedda, or rather on account of other people. Lauberg, indeed? Hedda, otherwise people might be apt to suspect that in your heart of hearts you didn't feel quite secure, quite confident in yourself. Mrs. Elstead softly, oh please Hedda. Lauberg, people may suspect what they like for the present. Mrs. Elstead joyfully, yes, let them. Hedda, I say it plainly in Judge Barak's face a moment ago. Lauberg, what did you see? Hedda, his contemptuous smile when you dared not go with them into the inner room. Lauberg, dare not? Of course, I prefer to stop here and talk to you. So, students, in these lines, when Lauberg tells Hedda he would not drink even for her sake, she forms for the first time in the play a concrete goal to prove her influence over Lauberg by getting him to drink. Her first effort center on socially shaming Lauber and by casting doubts on what is so important to him, his courage. Lauber is too much his own man, however, to give in to merely social pressure. Next lines are Mrs. Elfstead, what could be more natural, Hedda? Hedda, but the judge could not guess that, and I say, too, the way he smiled and glanced at Testman when you dared not accept his invitation to this wretched little supper party of his. Lauber dare not. Do you say I dare not? Hedda, I don't say so, but that was how Judge Barak understood it. Lauber, well, let him. Hedda, then you are not going with him, with them? Lauber, I will stay here with you and Thea. Mrs. Elstead, yes, Hedda, how can you doubt that? Hedda smiles and nods approvingly to Lauber. Firm as a rock, faithful to your principles. Now and forever, ah, that is how a man should be. Turns to Mrs. Elstead and kisses her. Well now, what did I tell you when you came to us this morning in such a state of distraction? Robert, surprised. Distraction? Mrs. Elstead, terrified. Hedda, oh Hedda. Hedda, you can see for yourself. You have not the slightest reason to be in such mortal terror. Interrupting herself. There, now we can all three enjoy ourselves. Robert, how has given us start? Who has given us start? Ah, what is all this, Mrs. Testman? Mrs. Elstead, oh my God, Hedda, what are you saying? What are you doing? Hedda, don't get excited. That horrid Judge Barak is sitting watching you. Lauber, so she was in mortal terror on my account? Mrs. Elstead, softly and piteously, oh Hedda, now you have ruined everything. Lauber looks fixedly at her for a moment. His face is distorted. So that was my comrade's frank confidence in me? Mrs. Elstead imploringly. Oh, my dearest friend, oh, let me tell you. Lauber takes one of the glasses of punch, raises it to his lips, and says in a low, husky voice, your health, Thea. He empties the glass, puts it down, and takes the second. Mrs. Elstead softly, oh, Hedda, Hedda, how could you do this? Hedda, I do it. I? Are you crazy? Robert, here is to your health too, Mrs. Testman. Thanks for the truth. Hurrah for the truth. He empties the glass and is about to refill it. Hedda lays her hand on his arm. Come, come, no more for the present. Remember, you are going out to supper. Mrs. Elstead, no, no, no. Hedda, hush. They are sitting watching you. Lauber, putting down the glass. Now, Thea, tell me the truth. Mrs. Elstead, yes. Lauber, did your husband know that you had come after me? Mrs. Elstead, wringing her hands. Oh, Hedda, do you hear what he is asking? Lauber, was it arranged between you and him that you were to come to town and look after me? Perhaps it was the sheriff himself that urge to come. Ah, my dear, no doubt he wanted my help in his office. Or was it at the card table that he missed me? Mrs. Elstead softly in agony. Oh, Lauberg, Lauberg, Lauberg seizes a glass and is on the point of filling it. Here's a glass for the old sheriff, too. So, students, in these lines, Hedda succeeds in pressuring Lauberg to drink precisely by breaking her earlier promise to Thea, namely, namely that she would not tell anything about Thea's reason for coming to town. Lauber can withstand social pressure, but he cannot withstand someone he trusts losing confidence in him. Lauber drinks, a sign that Hedda has reclaimed control over him and that he has lost control over himself. It especially wounds him that Thea didn't tell her husband that she was coming to town, which means that Thea loves Lovberg but still does not have confidence in him, a bitter combination. Hedda practices her influence again by now actively controlling how much Lovberg consumes. So here are the next lines. Hedda preventing him. No more just now. Remember, you have to read your manuscript to Testament. Lauber calmly putting down the glass. It was stupid of me all this. Thea to take it in this way. I mean, don't be angry with me, my dear comrade. You shall see, both you and the others, that if I was fallen once, have risen again. Thanks to you, Thea. Mrs. Elstead, radiant with joy. Oh, heaven be praised. Brack has in the meantime looked at his watch, and he and Tasman rise and come into the drawing room. Brack takes his hat and overcoat. Well, Mrs. Tasman, our time has come. Hedda, I suppose it has. Lauberg rising. Mine too, Judge Brack. Mrs. Elstead softly and imploringly. Oh, Lauberg, don't do it. Hedda pinching her arm. They can hear you. Mrs. Elstead with a suppressed shriek. Oh! Lauberg to Barack. You were good enough to invite me. Barack. Well, are you coming after all? Lauberg. Yes, many thanks. Barack. I am delighted. Lauberg to Tasman, putting the parcel of MS in his pocket. I should like to show you one or two things before I send it to the printers. Tasman, fancy, that will be delightful, but Hedda dear, how is Mrs. Elstead to get home? Huh? So in these lines, now that Lauberg has relapsed, he desperately wants to prove to himself that he has control over his drinking, hence his decision to go to the party. Hedda's desire to go to the party as an invisible onlooker is akin to her confidential relationships with men like Lauberg and Barak. She wants to see a world she is otherwise locked out of. So here are the next lines. Hedda. Oh, that can be managed somehow. Lauber, looking towards the ladies. Mrs. Elstead, of course I will come again and fetch her. Approaching. At 10 or thereabouts, Mrs. Tasman. Will that do? Hedda, certainly, that will do capitally. Testman, well, then that's all right, but you must not expect me so early, Hedda. Hedda, oh, you may stop as every you please. Mrs. Epstead, trying to conceal her anxiety. Well then, Mr. Lauber, I shall remain here until you come. Lauber, with his hat in his hand. Pray do, Mrs. Epstead, Judge Barak. And now off goes the excursion train, gentlemen. I hope we shall have a lively time, as a certain fair lady puts it. Ada, ah, if only the fair lady could be present unseen. Barak, why unseen? Ada, in order to hear a little of your liveliness at first hand, Judge Barak. Barak laughing, I should not advise the fair lady to try it. Tasman also laughing, come, you are a nice one, Hedda. Fancy that. Barak, well, goodbye, ladies. Lauberg bowing. About 10 o'clock then. Barak, Lauberg, and Tasman go out by the hall door. At the same time, Berta enters from the inner room with a lighted lamp, which she places on the drawing room. She goes out by the way she came. Mrs. Elfstead, who has risen and is wandering restlessly about the room. Hedda, what will come of all this? Hedda, at 10 o'clock he will be here. I can see him already, with wine leaves in his hair, flushed and fearless. Mrs. Elfstead, oh, I hope he may. Hedda, then and then you see, then he will have regained control over himself. Then he will be a free man for all his days. Mrs. Elfstead, oh God, if he would only come as you see him now. Hedda, he will come as I see him, so and not otherwise. Rises and approaches Thea. You may doubt him as long as you please. I believe in him, and now we will try. Mrs. Elfstead, you have some hidden motive in this, Hedda. Hedda, yes, I have. I want for once in my life to have power to mold a human destiny. Mrs. Elfstead, have you not the power? Hedda, I have not, and have never had it. Mrs. Elfstead, not your husband's? Hedda, do you think that is worth the trouble? Oh, if you could not, if you could only understand how poor I am, and fate has made you so rich. Clasps her passionately in her arms. I think I must burn your hair off after her. Mrs. Elfstead, let me go. I am afraid of you, Hedda. Berta, in the middle doorway. Tea is laid in the dining room, ma'am. Hedda, very well, we are coming. Mrs. Elfstead, no. I would rather go home alone at once. Hedda, nonsense. First you shall have a cup of tea, you little stupid, and then at 10 o'clock, Alert Lauberg will be here with vine leaves in his hair. She drags Mrs. Elfstead almost by force to the middle doorway. So, students, in these lines, it is important to note that Hedda does not immediately or only desire Lauberg's destruction. It seems here that she really does hope that he will master himself, which would be both courteous and beautiful of him. She only wants to control another person and to see something beautiful happen. The image of Lauberg with vine leaves in his here's just Hedda's first ideal for him. He who is creative and liberated, but also master of himself. It also becomes clear that she has held this image of Loberg since their past relationship. It's only when the first plot fails, then Hedda moves on to manipulate Loberg's destruction. Hedda shows her frightening side once again, threatening Thea and violently forcing her to stay. This may be because Hedda is now riled up by her new influence over Loberg, but it is also implied that she wants Thea to be present for Loberg's triumphant return, which would prove that it is Hedda's influence, not Thea's, that has finally won out in Loberg. Thank you. Thank you very much.